Hello there, this is Nitish Kumar Bhatia in front of you once again. Welcome you all in the Physics Arena by Nitish sir. Students, in the last few of lectures, we have discussed about the various topics from the chapter Newton's Law of Motion. So, in the subsequently, we will discuss today impulse of a force. What do you mean by impulse? What do you mean by impulse? So, impulse is defined as we are knowing that here I have written impulse of a force. It means that impulse will dependent on the force. So impulse is a physical quantity. Impulse is a physical quantity which is used to get an idea about the change in the dynamic state of a particle. So what we can write, how we can define impulse? So impulse can be defined as impulse is defined as a physical quantity which is used to determine give the idea about dynamic state of a moving particle is called impulse of force. So students, in other words, how we can define impulse? In other words, in very simplest words, we can define impulse as impulse is defined as how we can define impulse? A large or huge force, acting on a body for shorter duration of time, to change its state called impulse. So here I have given the two definitions. The simple one is that impulse is defined as a force acting on a body for a smaller duration of time, so that the body change its state in dynamic position is called that the impulse. And impulse is given by capital letter J. So it is denoted by capital J, the letter capital J. So J is equals to means that impulse is also defined as it is a product of force into shorter duration of time, F into delta T. F into delta T is the mathematical expression for impulse. So student, in this condition we can easily calculate here delta T tends to be 0. It means that time should be very small. So for this, how we can give the unit for impulse? The mathematical expression of impulse is equals to force into a small duration of time interval. So in order to give its unit, as I have written here that J is equals to product of force into a small duration of time. So the SI unit of force is Newton, and for time that is in second. So Newton second will be the SI unit of the impulsive force or impulse. So students, how we can give some more idea about the impulse. Let's start with the note. Students, as we are knowing that what we are knowing that in the condition of impulse, a huge force is acting for a smaller duration of time to an object, so that an object becomes in a state of dynamic. So as we are knowing that, what we are knowing that, as we know that impulse J is equals to force into delta t, where delta t tends to be 0, means it should be very small. And as we are knowing that force is equals to by second law of motion, what we are knowing that force is equals to mass into acceleration into time delta t. And as we are knowing that since A is equals to acceleration is equals to change in velocity with respect to time t. Change in velocity with respect to time t is known as acceleration. So from here we can write that m, and instead of A we can write delta v upon delta t into delta t is already written here. So delta t and delta t will be cancelled out with each other. Okay students, so now what we will get, m into delta v. Since delta v means, what delta v means? Delta v means change in velocity, means final velocity to the initial velocity. So if we multiply mv minus mu, so it is, if v signifies final velocity of the object and small u signifies initial velocity of the object, then from here we can say that it is delta p, that is change in momentum. So from here we can write that change in momentum is equals to the impulse. It means that what we can conclude that from this expression we can conclude that the momentum of a particle is the impulse required to bring the particle from rest to the present state of motion. Okay students, means whatever be the change in momentum takes place will be directly proportional to the impulse provided by the object. Okay students, so let's start to learn some basic examples of the impulse. Regarding with the impulse, what are the examples for the impulse? Some examples I am going to give you a glance. The first example for the impulse is a cricketer moves his hands. A cricketer moves his hands in backward direction, backwards while catching a ball. Why the cricketer stretch his hands in the backward direction while catching the ball? Because the ball which is coming to the player or the cricketer, it is in a state of motion. So to give the momentum or to reduce the impact of the force of the ball, the cricketer moves his hands in the backward direction to reduce the impulsive force. So the next example is a person jumps from a height on a pucca floor, receives more injuries than jumps on a heap heap of sand. Why? What is the reason behind this? The reason behind is that whenever a person jumps over the pucca floor, he suffered with a huge amount of the force onto his backs, whereas when he jumps over the heap of sand, he feels less amount of the force. That is the biggest reason of the impulse, or the example of the impulse. So students, let's discuss few more examples of the impulse, the phenomena of impulse. So the third example of the phenomena of impulse here, which I am going to give you a glance, that automobiles, whatever be the cars or buses or bikes, are always given with the shockers. So here I am writing automobiles are provided. Automobiles means cars, buses are provided with the shockers. Why shockers are provided to the automobiles? Because to reduce the impulsive forces, to reduce the action of impulsive forces, shockers are provided in the automobiles. And the next one example, buffers are provided between the bogies of the trains. Buffers are provided in between the bogies, of a train. So a lots of carriages are there in a train. So in order to reduce the impulsive forces while putting the brake, to reduce those impulsive forces, buffers are provided to the trains. So these are the various examples to understand the application of the impulse. So now we are moving towards the next topic. The next topic is, so students, the next topic is Newton's third law of motion. Now in order to discuss Newton's third law of motion, here I am writing Newton's third law of motion. So students, what do you mean by the Newton's third law of motion? Already in the last lectures I have given you the idea that the first law of the motion was the law of inertia, the second law of the motion was the law of momentum, and the third law of motion is also known as action and reaction. So this law is also known as law of action and reaction. So student, what this law states? This law states that the statement of this law is given as, so here I am going to write the statement of the third law of motion. This law states that, what this law states? This law states that to every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. It means that whatever be the magnitude of the action, in the same manner we will get the reaction. For example, whenever you are throwing a ball towards a wall, whenever you are throwing, let us suppose that this is a ball of mass m, okay, with the help of force, whenever we are throwing this ball towards the wall, and this is the wall, with the same magnitude the ball will bounce back towards yourself. So this is the third law of motion, that every action have equal and opposite reaction. So it means that the force which acts in the forward direction, force acting in the forward direction, and the sum of the force in the backward direction compensate to each other. It means that their algebraic sum should be 0. Okay students, it means that the force of forward that should be equals to the negative sign of the force of backward. Okay students, so this is the third law of motion which is given by the Newton. So with the help of few examples we will discuss also the third law of motion. So what the few examples of the third law of motions? The examples of the third law of motions are as follows. The first example of the third law of motion is that what? Recoiling of a gun. Recoiling of gun. Whenever we are firing a bullet from the gun, when a bullet is fired from gun, gun recoils in backward direction with same amount of magnitude of force, with which it is fired. Okay students, so this is the first example of the third law of motion. Okay, flight of jet planes or rockets. As you are knowing that whenever a rocket is going to be propulsion means for the rocket propulsion. Students, in condition of rocket propulsion, you are always seeing that a huge amount of fuel is burning in the downward direction. During rocket propulsion, huge amount of fuel gets burned, provides momentum in opposite direction. Why this happens? Because as the fuel burns, it liberates the energy in the downward direction, and due to the reflection, the rocket moves in the forward direction. So this is also the law of action and reaction. And few more examples are also there, like swimming, like pulling a horse cart, are the various examples of the third law of motion. So students, till here we have covered all the three laws of motion, that law of action and reaction, law of momentum, and law of inertia. So let's discuss about the new topic, that is the law of conservation of momentum. Conservation means that something becomes remain unchanged. So what this law states, that the statement of this law of conservation of momentum states that, students, it's my humble request, if you are having any suggestions with the video lectures, you can give in the comment section, because it might be possible you may give some valuable suggestions to improve the quality of the video. So In order to discuss the conservation of momentum, law of conservation of momentum states that when no external force acts on a system of particles, when no external force, here I am writing the statement, when no external forces acts on a system of particles means that where n number of the particles are, the various particles are there. So a system of particles, the total linear momentum of the system, remains conserved. What this statement tells? What does it mean of this statement? This statement tells that if there is no external forces applicable on the different number of the particles, there will be no cause of the change in momentum, means the body will remain its state of rest or motion. Okay students, so with the help of expression we will discuss about the law of conservation of momentum. So let's start with the law of conservation of momentum with the mathematical expression. Okay students, I am going to give you the glance how we can deduce the formulation for the law of conservation of momentum. So here I am going to discuss mathematically. So mathematical deduction of law of conservation of momentum. Law of conservation of momentum. How we can give it, how we can explain it with the help mathematically. So law of conservation of momentum can be given by mathematically as given as, let us suppose that the two objects two objects or two particles of a system having momentums P1 and P2. So vector P1 and vector P2, because the momentum is a vector quantity, P1 and P2, then the momentum of whole system can be given by how that the total momentum of the system P will be equals to P1 plus P2, and for n number of the system it will become like for n particles. If there are the n particles of a system, then we can give as vector P is equals to P1 plus P2 up to dot till n number of the particles Pn. Okay students, so as we are knowing that, we are knowing that delta P is equals to, means momentum means that the change, as we are knowing that change in momentum is equals to also change in the sum of momentum of the particle P1, change in the momentum of particle P2. Let's start to discuss with the two particle system. So complete change in momentum will be equals to the change in the momentum of particle 1 plus change in the momentum of the particle 2. Students, if this, let us suppose that this is the equation number 1. Divide this equation 1 with delta t, means small time. Dividing both sides of equation by delta t. So what will happen? Delta p upon delta t is equals to delta p1 upon delta t plus delta p2 upon delta t. It means that the time t is same for each and every condition. It means that it is very negligible where delta t tends to be 0. We can say that time t is very small. So in this, and delta means change can be also written as dp upon dt is equals to dp1 upon dt plus dp2 upon d2, and as we are knowing that the rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to the applied force. So according to second law of motion, what we can conclude? We can conclude that change in momentum, the rate of change of momentum is equals to the force. So here dp1 becomes f1 and dp2 becomes f2. So from above, let us suppose that this is equation number 2. From equation number 2, what we can conclude? That dp upon dt is equals to f. Total force F will be equals to F1 plus F2. It means that if no force is applied to an object, then there will be no momentum will produce in the system. Okay, students. So the algebraic sum should be 0 if in the order to get the momentum becomes conserved. Okay, students. Hopefully you all get my points which I have delivered here. From this equation 3, what we can conclude? We conclude that if F1 becomes minus of F2, then there will be no change in momentum. If F1 becomes minus of F2, if there will be no change in the force takes place, it means momentum will be unchanged. It means that then we can write that dp upon dt becomes 0. It means that time may be 0, becomes 0. So here momentum becomes constant. So if there will be no forces applied onto an object, then the total linear momentum of the object remain unchanged. Okay, students. It means that in absence of force, or we can also write that in absence of force or under balanced forces, the linear momentum of a particle of system remain conserved, means there will be no change in the momentum of the system will takes place. Okay, students. So hopefully you all have got my points related with the law of conservation of. Okay, students. Now we are going to discuss about the concurrent forces and equilibrium of the concurrent forces. So before going to state about the whole topic, first we will discuss what do you mean by the concurrent forces. If here I am writing the definition, forces acting, lots of forces acting at the same point, means the origin of the forces are same. Forces acting at the same point of a body, body are called are called concurrent forces. It means that point of action of all the forces should be same, are called concurrent forces. Okay students, concurrent forces. Okay, so in order to discuss the equilibrium of the concurrent forces, let us suppose that concurrent forces here, let us suppose that this is a point O, this is a point O, and from here the first force is F1, the second force is F2, the second force is F2, and the third force is in the opposite direction, that is F3. So there are the three forces acted on a same point O. Then these all forces F1, F2 and F3 are termed as concurrent forces because their point of action are same, concurrent forces, and their resultant can be given by here with the help of law of parallelogram. We can give its resultant in this way. So their resultant here, the resultant R will become what? F1 plus F2, and if we will add F3, then easily we will get the resultant of these three. So here we can also find out that the F3 is equals to, from the figure we can also write that force F3 will be equals to minus of F1 plus F2 easily. Okay students, so in order to give the equilibrium of the concurrent forces, now we are going to discuss with the help of a example. Okay students, so equilibrium of concurrent forces, equilibrium of concurrent forces. Let us suppose that if a body consisting n number of the particle, so different particle, so on the different particle n number of the forces will be also x. So let us draw a diagram. Let us suppose that this is a coordinate system along the x-axis, along the y-axis. Okay, so let us suppose that a force F1 acts at a point O. So here the force F1 acts the point at O. The next force F2 acting from the same point, here I drawn mismatch, the origin is also O. Okay, and the another force F3 acts like this. Here the three forces F1, F2 and F3 are acting at the same point. So what I am going to write, let us suppose forces F1, F2 and F3 are acting on a same point O, are concurrent forces, So in order to find out equilibrium of these concurrent forces, let us suppose that the force F1 makes an angle alpha with the horizontal. The force F1 makes an angle alpha with the horizontal. The force F2 makes an angle here. Let us suppose that this is alpha 1, and force F2 makes an angle with the horizontal of the x-axis, makes an angle alpha 2, and the third force makes an angle, that is alpha 3. So I am going to give, let us suppose let us suppose force F1 makes or sustains an angle alpha 1 from horizontal force F2 sustained alpha 2 and F3 sustains alpha 3. Okay students, so alpha 1, alpha 2 and alpha 3 are the angle respectively. So in order to give, as we are knowing that resultant of the two forces can be given by that R is equals to F1 plus F2. So here are the three forces, so the resultant can be given by R is equals to sum of all these forces, F1 plus F2 plus F3. So here F1 is equals to what? F1 cos alpha 1. Okay students, now F2 cos alpha 2 and F3 cos alpha 3. As we are knowing that a vector quantity is having the two components along the x-axis and along the y-axis. So this is along x-axis, okay, and along y-axis it will be vector R is equals to F1 sin alpha 1 plus F2 sin alpha 2 and F3 sin alpha 3. Okay students, so we can give, so what we can give, we can give an expression. So we can give an expression to discuss the balancing of these three forces, that what F1 upon sin alpha is equals to F2 upon sin alpha 2 and F3 upon sin alpha 3, and this is also known as, this theorem is also known as Lami's theorem. It is also known as Lami's theorem. Okay students, so what the Lami's theorem states? The Lami's theorem states that the force, if the three forces F1, F2 and F3 acting on a same point, then it will be equals to what? The force upon the angle between the other two, and F2 becomes alpha 2 and F3 becomes alpha 3. So in this condition we can easily find out the balancing condition of all these forces. So hopefully you all have got my points. If still you are having any doubt, just give me a comment and surely I will assist you all. Thank you very much students and have a great day.